Why do you let small things bother you? I've always thought worrying about small things as a character flaw, but very recently I realized being bothered by the small things, really diving deep into what is it exactly that's bothering me and taking action to do something about it is the exact reason my life is objectively better than it was before. I'm not trapped in a life I don't enjoy, not trapped in a job I hate, and definitely not bound by relationships where I don't feel respected. This video is the part 2 of the real way to improve your life. Last time I mentioned about a framework that had 2 steps. First, being radically honest with yourself about what's true. Second, taking radical action on it. But there's a step in between those two happening at the same time as the honesty, and we tend to skip this because it's quite difficult to do. It is to deeply feel your emotions. Before we go deeper talking about this, I want to be upfront about the fact that I'm not a psychologist. I'm someone sharing my personal opinions from lived experiences. It's what has pulled me out of some really dark and painful mind spaces at multiple points in my life. Take whatever helps you and just leave the rest. Every emotion that you feel, especially the negative ones, they are valid. Valid does not mean true. It means that it makes complete sense that you feel it. Like anyone who has been through what you've been through would feel the same. Like it is fully normal to feel the way you feel. This concept just by itself has really been a turning point in my life. Most cultures, including the Indian culture that I grew up in, we treat emotions with a combination of judgment, fear, and pressure to fix it. The positive emotions like joy, gratitude, excitement, those are widely accepted. Anything other than that or a neutral emotion, anger, sadness, fear, jealousy, envy, these are considered to be problems, as if it has to be fixed like right now. I can talk about how we viewed emotions in my home from what I can remember. Feeling anything other than like a neutral, numb was not acceptable. Sadness was definitely not acceptable. Anger was not acceptable. When I was feeling any emotion like anger or sadness, that was when they would joke about that I'm in my zone again. When I became a teenager, I started suppressing my emotions and started invalidating my own emotions the way my parents used to. Ignoring the emotions doesn't make it go anywhere. It's still there. It's just like suppressed into your subconscious. Like the analogy that I can give is I felt like I'm water that's boiling, but there's a lid pressed down on top that is keeping things in check, but it is trying to come out. I was trying so hard to not let any of it show because I knew there were really negative consequences to showing it. My father also had pretty bad anger issues and it would just turn into a brutal fight. As much as I did want to stand up for myself, me as a skinny teenager, I can never win in a fight like that. And then I became an adult who was too scared to feel, scared of my own emotions, and genuinely believe that something bad will happen if I show my emotions. But let's say you do take action to come out of that danger. When I left home, I was no longer in a physically dangerous, emotionally and mentally abusive situation anymore. So that by itself should be enough to allow myself to feel right. No, not at all. The fear was very much still there. I thought if I let out the anger or the frustration, I would literally explode. Now looking back, it was really necessary to allow myself to go through a phase of that without judging myself like what's happening with me. When you actually let yourself feel the frustration, let the anger move through you instead of holding it in, the water that was boiling and trying to get out, like that pressure is gone. Your nervous system also starts to calm down. Doing it enough times where I'm focused fully internally, what starts to shift is that you start to trust yourself more because you don't run away from yourself when it gets uncomfortable. There's so much value in fully feeling your emotions. It tells you so many things about yourself, what direction you're going in, what kind of life you want to live, what kind of people you want around, and the way to recognize your boundaries so that you can communicate it to others properly. This advice that I keep hearing, don't be a slave to your emotions. This is such bullshit nonsense because even in that sentence, there is a negative judgment towards your emotions. A feeling that is hurting needs the thing which it never got before, which is care, attention, and understanding. Anything to do with emotions has to be treated so gently, not with judgment. Most likely, if you grew up around people who judged your emotions negatively, there's really high chances that that is how you treat yourself. That is why I'm making this video, because this is such an important paradigm shift. When you treat your emotions with love, you don't become a slave to them. It's a real relationship with your emotions, and it's a lifelong relationship. You will literally never get rid of your emotions until the day you die. With this video, the message is not to always trust your emotions. The message is to feel your emotions deeply because that is where the personal truths are hidden, which give you really important information about how to approach something. We often see anger as a really negative emotion. I always try to suppress it, but in the recent years, I've come completely changed my attitude towards anger, understanding that having a temper, being frustrated or angry is not a fault in my personality, but that anger and frustration, they are messages that are pointing me towards the fact that my boundaries were crossed and I didn't do anything about it. I wasn't able to stop it. A lot of these emotions, they happen subconsciously. So like in the moment, you would just let it pass, but later after some time, it kind of comes up as this frustration. Like, this is pissing the hell out of me and I don't want this to ever happen again. For example, being made fun of. Let's say someone makes a joke about you in front of other people and everyone laughs and you also laugh. In the moment, you do feel uncomfortable, but you don't say anything. And maybe you just tell yourself like, I shouldn't be so sensitive. But if you actually stay with the anger and do the whole processing of that emotion, the answer might actually be, I don't want to be close friends with people who put me down and laugh at my expense. At that point, you know a truth about yourself and you can go and address the situation and tell them about it. And if they're actually your friends, they'll listen to you. Another example is with one-sided friendships. Let's say you're always the one who is sending the first message, making plans, checking up on others. But when you stop, they're not doing the same with you. And that might make you feel hurt and angry. And if you explore this emotion, you realize, I don't like friendships where I'm carrying the entire relationship. I don't want one-sided friendships anymore. People pleasing. Let's say someone in authority asks you to do something and you say yes, but you don't actually want to do it. Like subconsciously, you feel resentment because you wanted to say no, but you still said yes. Anger in that situation, it's not towards them. The anger is towards yourself because you didn't stand up for yourself. And if you explore that, the hidden truth might be, I keep abandoning my own needs to make other people comfortable, or because I'm scared of the consequences. And now you know exactly what to work on, which is the people-pleasing tendencies. Why do you let small things bother you? I've heard this so many times from my family, and for the longest time I thought it's a character flaw. But now I see the gift in being sensitive to the small things. It's because I'm sensitive, I'm able to catch them while they're still small before they turn into something huge. The small feeling you ignore today is how people end up being committed to a lifestyle that they hate. Like taking a major in college that you hate, and for the next 4 years you have to study that. I've personally known so many people who are in unhappy situations right now, even unhappy marriages, but they're so deep in it, it would take a destruction of a life that they've spent years building to get out of it. How are you supposed to build an honest and authentic life when the whole foundation of it is a lie? Something that many do not want to hear is, when you refuse to make a change, eventually the change gets made for you. I don't want this to scare anyone, but eventually what happens is you are put in a circumstance where you are unable to ignore the reality of the situation anymore. That is why radical honesty and feeling your emotions is so important. They give you so much information and signals about what needs to be paid attention to, what needs to be dealt with. With practice, it becomes like a skill that you have, and discernment is so important. If there's one thing you take from this video, I hope that it would be this, that your emotions, they're not weaknesses or inconveniences. Acknowledging your own emotions and standing up for yourself, it has to start somewhere. This is the real form of taking back your power and creating real lasting change. First, with radical honesty, looking at the reality of how things are. Second, feeling the emotions, which will eventually build trust with yourself. And based on that solid ground, taking radical action. The other things that self-help books talk about, becoming disciplined, waking up early, working out, doing all of that comes later as a result of doing this.